Back here in Austin today.
That's awesome. Hi, Linda. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get us set up and start sharing my screen. Bear with me and let me know if you give me the thumbs up if you all can see. Good? Andy, you good? Can you see it? Okay, perfect. All right. And then LaShonda, can you hear us okay? That's a yes. All right, well, we'll go ahead and dive right in. So I know we have some returning faces as well as some new faces on both teams. So I would love us to just start off by sharing what your name is, your current role, what you're either really excited about for the upcoming work in Chicago, or maybe something that you are wondering about as we're preparing for upcoming support visits. Andy, do you mind starting us off? You're the first one I see.
Wow, all right. So, hey, I'm Andy. I'm currently an analyst here at Education First. I guess two things. One, I'm just generally excited to learn more generally about opportunity culture and the look-fors that we'll be observing while we're in the school buildings. And I'm just excited to actually visit a school in Chicago Public Schools for the first time. I've read a lot about CPS as a researcher, but never actually have stepped foot in the building. So just looking forward to all of those pieces.
That's awesome. Becca, do you mind hopping in?
Not at all. Thanks so much. My name's Becca Ryan, and I'm also an analyst at Education First. And my reflection is very similar to Andy. I'm so excited to get an opportunity to be in a school. It has been a while since I've been in one, and I feel like it is always the most impactful experiences. And really excited also to get an opportunity to see opportunity culture in action. I've also read a lot about it and learned a lot about it, and really excited to see it in the school.
It's awesome.
Hey, Becca and Andy, were you both teachers or in the classroom at some point?
I was, yeah. I taught middle school science in New Orleans, and I also taught abroad for a year, which I think Jessica was actually in the same place I was the year beforehand. So
I knew you looked so familiar. That's so funny. So you were.
I was like, I know her from somewhere. Yes.
So
whoa.
Everyone that is on the line, Becca and I both did a Fulbright grant teaching in Thailand for a year. I was the year before her.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What a small world.
It is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to be able to hang out a little bit in Chicago and hear about all your Thai adventures.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.
Yeah, and I also have taught, I taught high school math in Northampton County, North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina.
Oh, really?
I also was a PBIS coach in Durham Public Schools for a bit. So.
Oh, small world. That's right up with us. Do you know Grayson Cooper?
Yeah, I went to high school with Grayson.
Do you connect with him still? So he's on our staff.
Yeah, I know that he's on your staff. He and I went to high school at the exact same time, same school, etc. And then he ended up teaching in my hometown.
Wow. Yeah. And so do you know Sarika Mendu?
Hmm?
Do you know Sarika Mendu?
No.
She was there with high school with you guys, but that's awesome. Never mind. Well, cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kendall, sorry, back to the other slide.
My turn?
Yeah, your turn.
Awesome. Hey, I'm Kendall King. I too taught high school math like Andy and Grayson and other people. I actually taught in Chicago. So I did TFA in Chicago, stayed at my placement school, and then I was an MTLD also in Chicago at some of the schools that we have on our caseload here. So I'm very excited to go back. I've been on the Chicago project. This is my third year now, and I project manage it on the public impact side. So I'm very excited to see, I didn't travel last year, so I'm excited to see what my schools did when I coached them 2 years ago. I'm excited to see them in person.
Awesome. There we go. LaShonda, can you hear us? Do you want to do a quick introduction?
My computer.
Anthony, what about you? You want to?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Anthony King. My current role here at EdFirst is the Director of Strategic Leadership and Inclusion / Senior Consultant. So sometimes they let me out of the house and I can contribute to and do projects like this. And so just like I've enjoyed the support visits that I've been a part of for Opportunity Culture. And yeah, that's about it.
Thanks.
Hey, Anthony, I didn't see you there.
Oh, yeah. I hopped on a little later, and I'll also be leaving a little sooner. So.
No
And
problem.
also not coming to support visits, but we're glad you're here.
Right. Forgot to leave that little detail out.
Boo.
Hi, LaShonda.
Hey y'all, I've been kind of like creeping in the background. Then my computer was acting funny and you couldn't hear me.
Well, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us your role and what you're either excited about or wondering for support visits.
So I am LaShonda Hester. I work for Public Impact. I had the pleasure of supporting Chicago Public Schools last year with PD as well as their design session for this group of principals and staff members. I am excited, like Kendall, I'm excited to see how things are actually going with us having had some time away from them and just how implementation's going.
Awesome. And Ashley and Joe and myself will round us off.
Hi there. I'm Ashley Williams. I'm a consultant with Public. I'm super excited to visit Chicago for visits because I love seeing OC in action. So I had an opportunity to be a multi-classroom leader in Charlotte schools, and there were tons of different models, even within CMS. And I am excited whenever I can see it in action, and it always gives me new ideas to see how people are using their teacher leaders, just really supporting their staff.
I think I was next. Hey y'all, I'm Joe Anderson. I'm a senior consultant at EdFirst. This will be the third year going into opportunity culture work in CPS. Also previously worked with other PI staff in doing opportunity cultural work in a number of districts in Texas where I live, which was cool. But always a great opportunity to work directly with teachers, principals, and other educators, including these support visits. So, like others have said, it'll be a great opportunity to get into the schools, talk with the teachers that are MCLs and playing other roles, hear how things are going, the good and the bad, and help them improve moving forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing y'all in Chicago in a couple weeks, and I'll say y'all as many times as I can.
Awesome. Hi, all. I'm Jessica Struess. I'm a consultant here at Public Impact. I started in Memphis as a Teach for America Corps member and have taught in 5 different states since, so kind of been all over the place. My husband and I just moved here to North Carolina, and I'm super excited I got to visit Chicago for the first time with Kendall to get our background check completed. Got a taste of Chicago pizza. I am Italian, and so anything pizza or sauce and cheese is just my jam. So I'm excited to go back and have some more great food. But also, I always feel at home at school. So it's going to be really nice to be school-based again for a little bit and see opportunity culture in action and provide some really clear recommendations for schools to make it feel really comfortable and smooth for both teachers and students. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, starting off with what do we hope to achieve by the end of today's time together. One is I think it's important for us to just explain the purpose and context for support visits. I know some of us have been on support visits before, so I just want to name that some of this information on the front end might sound a little bit repetitive, so I encourage you to jump in and share any insight that you might have from your past experiences. But for the new folks who haven't been on a support visit before, we really want to bring some clarity to the context and the purpose of these visits. We're also going to take a look at the support visit timeline tracker and articulate clarity around each coach's roles and the upcoming action items. And then we'll wrap up our time together by discussing logistics and travel moving forward. Anyone have anything to add or any questions before we start? Great. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about what is the purpose of support visits, particularly in just in general, but then in the context of Chicago. So the main purpose of a support visit for those new folks is to go in and gather information about opportunity culture. So 16 schools in Chicago right now have already gone through the opportunity culture design process. And it's these 16 schools that we're going to be going into and really gathering some information to ensure the fidelity to 5 opportunity culture principles that you can see here on the right. Those are schools reaching more students with excellent teachers? Are they paying those teachers more for expanding their reach and funding that within regular school budgets? Are schools providing time and clarity within the school day for those multi-classroom leaders to do all that they need to do to fulfill their role? And then is there some sort of accountability system in place? So that's like the main piece, but more importantly, we really want to celebrate, this is a change for a lot of schools. So we want to be able to identify the successes, so what is working really well, and any challenges that schools are facing to implementations that we can provide really clear recommendations for schools to address these challenges moving forward. So that's kind of like the big picture, the why. Kendall, do you want to add anything, or is there any other context that you feel like is important for kind of why we're doing these visits? And EF people, anybody that's new to the team, if I say something that you're like, I don't quite know what that is yet, please just stop me and I'll clarify.
I don't really have anything to add. It's just, we want to improve the schools. We want OC to be as best as it can. And the way we know how to do that is by these principles, which are research-based, and we'll keep pushing towards those.
Can I just add one quick thing? I've seen just in my experience, and I know everyone else on this call is much more than I do too, but in CPS and in Texas districts and other places, like the principals and the district teams really value this feedback that they receive during the visits themselves, like the conversations that we help them have, but also the memos and the follow-up conversations with principals, and they take it and use it for the most part. Like, of course, not everything that we recommend they do actually gets followed through, but they appreciate it, and that's why I think they welcome us back year after year in some of these districts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also for a lot of schools, like a very one-time, like our contact with those schools, right? So it's our time to be able to build on the relationships and to have kind of deeper conversation with those school leaders. So I think I appreciate you adding that insight, Joe. So we know the why. Let's dive into what does a support visit actually look like, feel like, sound like. So starting with the when. We are going to be conducting support visits in Chicago on December 3rd through December 5th. That is a total of 3 days. We are going to visit 2 schools a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So how is that exactly going to work? There's going to be 3 interview teams, each consisting of 1 PI person and 1 EF person. And one of the 2 is going to be assigned as the main school coach. And so we're going to call them that 1 point person as the main school coach throughout this process. Depending on how many schools each team visits, each of the coaches will probably be the main school coach for about 2 to 3 schools. So that's kind of just like the big picture. Day of the visit, what does it look like? So you're going to go into the schools, like I said, 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon with an hour break for lunch. You'll go in and you're going to be conducting a series of interviews with the principal, OC team members, MCLs, EITs, all people that take part in opportunity culture, but also potentially some teachers that are not touched by opportunity culture roles. The principals are ultimately going to provide the day of schedule and what it's going to look like for us. And that might include some small classroom observations, but I just want to note that these observations are not looking at instructional practices. It's simply to get greater clarity for how these people are engaging in their roles as part of the opportunity culture team. So that's the day of, and then all of this work is going to culminate in really 3 big takeaways. One is the SRI, the School Implementation Review, which is an implementation checklist. Are schools hitting all of these different marks? Joe, has your team had a chance to look at that at all yet?
No, not the SRI. I just recently did share examples of last year's feedback memos, though.
Okay.
But we haven't gone into detail about these items yet.
Yeah, no problem. And our goal is the next webinar to really dive into all these materials in more depth. So you will have a look at what each of these that I'm referring to looks like in more detail. So we have the SRI, and then from what Joe shared, you guys have taken a look at some feedback memos, which really highlights those successes and recommendations that we have moving forward. And then the last piece is we gather all that information to conduct a debrief call with principals where we share kind of our big takeaways from both of those, the SRI and the feedback memo. Anything else about like kind of what the day of is going to feel like?
It's a whirlwind, so be prepared. It's quite, I mean, Joe, you can speak to it too. It's quite a whirlwind with like squeezing lunch right in. It's long days for sure, but it's fun. The time goes by fast and it's fun being on site. So it's interesting, but you're gonna like it a lot.
Yeah, they are long days, they are exhausting, but they're also really fun, as Kenzel noted. And I think it's just important to state the fact that every support visit is different. So I can tell you what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like, and you might walk in and be like, this is not at all what I thought, or was completely different than the first one I went. And that's an okay feeling. So just know that they will look a little bit different based on the people that are in the room. Okay, so now let's take a look at the overall process of support visits in general and then CPS specific. So really the support visit cycle for schools in the fall is anywhere from like 2 to 3 months. So there's divided into 3 stages: the before, the day of the visit, and then the after. And the before really is that planning and logistics piece, scheduling the day of the interview, reaching out to principals, introducing yourself. Kendall and I have been working to do a lot of these kind of in the background, and we'll share where we are in that process in a second. And then the during portion is really where we're interviewing principals, we're gathering information on how the implementation is going in schools, and then after culminating in the SRI, the memo, and the debrief call. So that's that overall process. And then if you look over to the right on the table, I can give you a little bit of information regarding each of the steps now. But first, I said at the beginning that there's going to be kind of that one main point person for each school. And that one main point person is going to be responsible for this process, the before, setting up the schedule with principals, the gathering the information, and then the creating that memo with that subset of schools. So ultimately, you're going to be bouncing ideas off of your partner that you'll be going on all these site visits with, but that one main school coach is going to be responsible in the end for that full process. And I'm sorry for a second, I am getting messages like at the top and I don't know how to access that. So if there's something really that you want to ask me, please go ahead and do so live, because I am going to ruin something if I try to look at where these messages are coming from. Okay, so where are we in the process now? So the first thing that we need to do is reach out to principals with a date and a time for their school visit. We know it's going to happen over those 3 days, the December 3rd, starting December 3rd, but we need to solidify which time is going to work for each school. CPS, our contact there, Courtney, is going to be responsible for this action item. However, if you've been following the news, you know that there's a strike going on in Chicago right now. And so she doesn't want to communicate with schools yet until things have kind of settled. Kids and teachers are back in schools. Is there any update on that? As I saw earlier this morning, school was still canceled as of today. Yeah. So my hope is that this initial contact will be sent out by the end of the week, but Kendall is going to reach out to you all on November 4th, which is that at the end of next week? Kind of with an update on where we stand with this, and has an initial email been sent out. But that's really the first step, and Chicago is going to take ownership for that. And then if you look at November 6th, this is where the school coach's role is really gonna come in full swing. So the first step is gonna be to email principals a day of schedule. And what that means is just reaching out, introducing yourself, introducing your partner, and asking for telling them who we wanna meet with and asking them to provide a day of agenda or schedule for what that's gonna look like. And Kendall's gonna walk you through that document in a sample email in a few minutes. But we're going to hold off on that until you get that email from Kendall on November 1st. And once we know that those dates have been scheduled with school, that gradual release will take place, and then coaches will own the rest of the process. But I just want to reiterate, and I'll say it again probably later on, we really want Chicago to be the first ones to reach out to schools, and we're just kind of in limbo waiting for that to happen after the strike settles. And then if you look at the last piece, December 3rd through December 5th, the day of those visits, and then the 2 weeks afterwards, this is when the bulk of the coaches' work is going to take place. It's going to take some time to do the memo, to create the SRI. So I just want to name that on the front end so you can take a look at your calendars and plan accordingly. We're hoping to have all of this done by the time schools go on break for holiday break, with the understanding that that's not going to be a perfect science, and that some principals are not going to be able to schedule us in, and that's okay, but that's our goal on the front end. Are there any questions on this timeline or any part of the process so far?
I just want to say that I know, especially for you, Andy and Becca, because this is you're just coming into this, on that really tight timeline at the middle of December. Kendall and I touched base on this already, and we know that we're going to probably need to allow some flexibility. I know some folks are out of the office on some of those dates. So we'll work with everyone to make sure that that's a realistic timeline for getting those memos drafted and reviewed, of which Public Impact is going to do the review and get them finalized before we talk to principals. So just know that I don't know if we're going to talk about the detailed timeline today, but we will be soon. To make sure it's workable.
Yeah. So building off that, if you have the through line and you're in control of essentially everything for your timeline. So if you're the main point person for X school, you're going to be the one interviewing the principal, which means you'll be setting the date for the debrief. So you know your calendar better than we do. So you'll want to make sure that you have time for that debrief to actually draft the memo, get it reviewed by Public Impact, and finalize it for your debrief call. So that's why you're kind of connected throughout the whole process. So we'll just stay in communication, because we have folks in our team too, like LaShonda is traveling all the next week. So obviously can't be writing 3 memos and have those ready for a principal. So we'll be in communication and be flexible if needed.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of segue into our next slide. So as a coach, what is your role? We've decided we thought it'd be easiest for everybody, because we know everybody has a ton going on, to kind of chunk action items based on our webinar dates. So the next webinar is going to be on November 18th. And at that time, we'll dive more deeply into the timeline of day of visits, what those interview protocols are going to look like, the SRI, and the memo. And we can kind of hash out in those logistical and calendar details at that time. That works for everybody. So up until the next time we meet, which is November 18th, the coach is going to review your coaching assignments, which you can see some tentative assignments down here below. We paired Kendall, Jess, and Andy because Kendall's going to be doing the first day of support visits. I'm going to be in Memphis, and then the two of us are going to switch after the first day. And then under your name is listed the schools that you are tentatively going to visit. Now, like I said, CPS is going to be reaching out, confirming these dates and times. And when we have each principal's confirmation, these might shift a little bit. But the reason why we put them under each person is because one person on your team already has a connection with that school in some way. And so we tried to organize it that way. Kendall, do you want to speak any more about how they were organized? But I just want to note that they may change if the schedules don't quite work out. And you'll get some more clarity on that when Kendall reaches out on November 4th.
Yeah, the main thing, kind of like you were saying, is we try to organize by people who have relationships with the principals. So LaShonda, for example, was the school coach last year in design for Langford. So we wanted her to ideally visit that school. And if it all works out, she would be the point person doing the principal interview and writing the memo for that school. So we kind of works out that way. Ashley, you already know this. We have you visiting Allison's school so you can connect. Same thing, Andy, we have you visiting Anthony's schools from last year so you can actually connect with him and learn a lot more about the process. Potentially even involve him if you wanted in like debrief calls to have that relationship. So there's kind of possibilities there. Nothing for you, Becca, but it's okay.
Awesome. And so the next step before our next webinar is to reach out to principals once we get the green light after all the dates are confirmed, and send some scheduling guidance, which Kendall's going to walk you through in the next couple slides. And Kendall, just give me the thumbs up when you're ready for me to swap the slides. You're muted.
I'm just going to share my screen so I can click on the links. Okay, I'm going to turn my head because I am looking at something else. All right, let me share. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Where's that button on here? How do you do Google Slides? Oh, here, okay. Okay, so we try to adapt this and put this into 4 kind of like next steps to make it as simple as possible, but definitely let me know if anything is confusing or doesn't make sense. So whenever you get the go ahead, maybe it's going to be on November 4th, but I'll try to update you. Could be later than that, depending on when this strike is going. But ideally, we're planning on you emailing your principals right here on number 2 on November 6th. But of course, wait until you get the green light. Prior to that, you can start doing a little work to get your emails completely ready to send and your scheduling guidance ready to send. So I'm going to click this here, and then Jess will make sure that you have all the links to everything. But in our PIEF Google Drive, we have a, can you all still see my screen? Yep. Okay. We have here a draft email. So I don't know how to zoom in, but you can figure that out. Okay. A draft email that you can change as much as you want. I put some comments in here that are noting that this is kind of geared more towards someone who's first time introducing themselves to a principal. So obviously, LaShonda, Joe, you'd want to adapt it a lot to, you know, whatever, be yourself, acknowledge your connection. So basically, it just goes through and introduces yourself. Talks about hearing a lot of great things from whoever the school coach was last year. If you don't know who that is, just ask. You'll be confirming the date and time, which you'll have a confirmation from me at that point, so you'll know that. And then you're going to give a little bit of information about the purpose of the support visits. We're trying to tactfully introduce the terminology opportunity culture. They know of it, but as you all know, probably from Joe, they don't call opportunity culture that in Chicago. They call it empowered schools. More on that to come when we get into the protocols next time. But you'll introduce the purpose of the visit, and then what exactly it will be like with your individual interviews and observations. So essentially what you're trying to do is by Friday, November 15th, you're asking them to complete a Google Doc with a schedule. And so I'll show you that doc in a second, but you'll have this email, and then you need to make a school-specific Google Doc that they'll fill out that's in their school folder, which I'll show you. And all of that is explained and linked right here. So I'll click on that and then I'll see if you all have questions. So here, if you click there, which is in the comments, this takes you to the master copy. What you'll need to do is make a copy of this and actually edit it to fit your school's context and save it in your school's folder. You're even welcome to save the email there if you want, or you could just have that in your regular email. So I try to leave a note here. So make a note to make a doc like this and save it in your school's folder so that you can actually link this doc in your email that you send. This is just a note in general because it's come up on our team. If you need breaks, either for whatever reason, maybe you need to pump or whatever, make them for yourself. However you organize this template is what principals are going to fill out. So think about yourself and your needs, and if you need a 5-minute break in between each one, schedule that. Put that in the sample so it's 100% clear what you want people to sign up for. But essentially what it will have is every school will fill out this blank table. They'll put in the times, they'll put in the whatever, and again, you can be as prescriptive or not. You could put in time slots already or leave it up to them if you're flexible. You'll be saving room for 2 visitors for your 2 interview team. And then there's some scheduling guidance down here that would be helpful you can read over. You could also adapt it if you know anything about that school's context. But essentially it just walks them through, see there's some typos, oh Lord. It just walks you through, like if you have a morning slot, we're welcome to start earlier. If their school starts at 7:30 and we can get there earlier, no problem. What we can't do is go past 11:30 because now we have to go to another school. So you can read through this guidance, and if you have questions, just ask. We don't have to go through it all right now. But it's going to reiterate who to talk to, what that means, what observations should look like. It's not really observing teachers, it's observing MCLs working with teachers, MCLs having planning time. We're trying to see how this distributed leadership model is working. We're not trying to see necessarily the instruction that students are getting. So that's kind of it. So then at the bottom here, it shows sample schedules. These are very generic. You're welcome to use these. It shows having a principal interview and then interviewing everyone else. But there's a couple of things that I would, tips that I would give you. So first, some of the schools have a lot of MCLs. So you're gonna have to be jam-packing things in here. There's some flexibility up here when it says who to interview, like it says each MCL for sure. 1 or 2 teachers on the MCL's team for sure. But if you have to prioritize, just make sure you get 1, right? If you have more time, you could have more than 1. Every expanded impact teacher for sure. And then they go down in priority. So you don't really need to see an AP if you don't have to, right? You don't necessarily have to see 1 or 2 teachers not supported by an MCL if there's not time. So try to get them, but if you can't, no worries. The principal interview for sure, and then it gives you some like estimates in terms of how long each of these things could be. Again, you're kind of prioritizing your time with the principal and the MCLs. Everything else can be shorter. I say that because as principals are filling this Google Doc out, you'll probably want to be checking occasionally and start giving feedback, either list comments, you can tag them in it since it's on Google Doc, you could email them, however you want to do to start kind of checking the quality of their schedule. For example, if they do the whole thing and there's no principal interview, you can be like, hey, like, what's going on? Things like that. The other thing I'll say is that the better your sample schedule is, actually the better your actual schedule is if they fill out. So if you know, for example, you have a morning interview, then don't even just delete this whole afternoon interview on here. There's no need to put it. If you know when you learn about your school's plan that there's 3 EITs and only 1 MCL, you could adjust the sample schedule to actually be more like what they're actually going to see. And I'll show you where some information is about that in a second. So I'm going to pause. I feel like I threw a lot at you. Does anyone have questions about the email or adapting the email or adapting the scheduling guidance? Nope. Okay. So that's that. Just reach out if you need it. Okay, let me go back to here. So then each school has a school-specific folder. These are in our PIEF Google Drive. So schools do not have access to these right now. So the intention is you'll be sharing one document with them, but don't give them the access to this whole folder or anything like that, because that's where we'll be putting the notes, all the interview protocols, all the memo drafts, all that stuff before it's final and we want to share with the district will probably be in these folders. So sensitive information. So you can see in each school folder, there's not a scheduling guidance because you're going to make a copy, edit it, and put it in here. But there is a little one-pager that CPS made. And so you can see on here in each of these one-pagers, Courtney and Mike and their team actually made it to give to the network chiefs. That's what they call the principal's bosses, like an area superintendent kind of thing. And so what it does, it will just kind of quickly give a snapshot of their school, of their theory of action for opportunity culture. Look, they even use the word opportunity culture. That's pretty cool. It talks about their measures of success, what they're hoping to get out of it, other initiatives that are happening in their school. And then the best part is it tells you their OC roles. So you'll know most updated, these have been updated for this school year. You'll actually have the best snapshot of anything by looking at this and seeing, okay, here's my MCL, there's only one, and here's who she teaches or supports. The best thing about this is as you're creating a sample schedule, if there's no teachers on this team, or you know that there's 3 and you're leaving early, you could be like, hey, can I actually interview the other 2 teachers? Or hey, why am I only interviewing one MCL versus the other 2? So that should help you give feedback and make sure your schedule is good. Questions? Cool. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So basically it's starting now. You could go ahead and read that one-pager, connect with a previous coach if you have one, learn a little bit about that school and get that email and get that scheduling document ready to go. Okay, sorry, I'm missing all these things. I see what you're talking about, Jess. Too confusing. I can't concentrate on that.
Hard to multitask.
Yeah. Okay, and then email the principal once you get the green light. We're shooting for the 6th. Support the principal as needed to make the schedule. So once you send that email, check in periodically, see what it's going, check it against the one-pager. Are you missing any OC roles? Is something funky happening, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that I forgot to mention, this is out of order, I'm sorry, but one thing I forgot to mention is that if there aren't a lot of OC roles, it can be really helpful for you and your interview partner to interview the principal together. So think about that if you're creating a sample and there's only one MCL and that's it, you might have time to actually both of you be in that principal interview so you both get to hear some context about the overall school. You'll see once we do the protocols that the principal interview is going to be really meaty and it's going to share a lot of insight. So if you can do that first thing of the day, and if both people can go, that's the best case scenario, but work with whatever you got. And then the last thing on here is just to keep in communication. So flag for Jess if your principal is unresponsive, and maybe irresponsible, and then if they're not updating the day of schedule. We just want to be really communicative because CPS has a lot of in-person touch points. So if we can get on top of this early, CPS will be able to talk to them and help us get it figured out. That's all I had about immediate stuff. Jess, do you have anything to add or am I missing? Or LaShonda, Ashley, you all have both been on some too.
No, I think that's good. It's gonna feel, you might have some additional questions as you actually dive into this, and then in that case, just always feel free to reach out to myself or Kendall, and I'll communicate with Kendall.
Yep. All right, I'll stop sharing and turn it back to you.
Great. All right, can you guys see mine okay? Great. Let's see if it'll actually let me. All right, so last couple pieces. We talked about what those action items are leading up to our next webinar, which is creating that schedule guidance, communicating with the principal. The webinars are really going to be our main point of contact with that we outline for you in detail all the action items that are coming up for your role. So don't feel like you're missing anything or what do I need to do now? Everything that you need to know in the immediate future, we're going to make sure to communicate with you in detail on those webinars. But in the meantime, if there's anything top of mind, always feel free to reach out to me and I will either answer your question or reach out to somebody that I know is able to answer your question. As Kendall mentioned, we are going to share all of our documents in the Google Drive folder at some point, either today or tomorrow. Just make sure you can access it. I think I did the best that I could to make sure that everybody is able to access the folder, but if you can't, just flag me and I'll reach out to LaShonda. So let me just show you what it's going to look like, and then we'll dive into one other document that you can use as a resource moving forward. Can you guys see my browser okay? Andy, you're saying no. Can you see my browser?
No, we just see your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
All right, so let me share the screen now. Okay. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So here is the Google Drive folder where we're going to be sharing all the documents. Everything that, let me go back for a second and just go to the overall folder, which houses kind of all of the work that we're going to be doing as a team. But if you jump into the 2019 support visits, here is where you'll be able to access all of the content that we talked about on today's webinar, including the PowerPoint and the linked agenda. You'll also be able to go into your school folders where you have each individual school and you can set that up, as Kendall had mentioned. And then you have this folder called Tracker. So when Kendall and I were thinking about how we were going to make this, all of these action items really approachable and tangible for coaches, we realized that we need some sort of system to be able to streamline communication between both CPS, ourselves, and track kind of action items. There's a lot of information that is going to be going out to principals, and we just want like an overall view of where everybody is in this process. And so if you click on the CPS Support Visit Tracker, and then of course you're going to want to open with Google Sheets so that you can edit it. And this is going to be a document that's edited by all of us. We've organized it. First of all, I just want to point out the top line is kind of the action items for support visits that will be coming up. They're organized by color. So right now, anything in green is those action items that are going to be from now until our next webinar. Anything in blue will be all those action items leading up to the day of the school visit, and then anything in that orangish yellow color will be after the visit. So let's just dive in and look at the green right now. So on the left-hand side, you see all of the schools, the grade, the address for your reference, the principal's name. I'm going to add a column once we get the go-ahead for school coaches to reach out to principals with scheduling guidance. I will add a column with the principal's email for you to be able to access. Column E, you can see the date and time that the school's visit is scheduled. Again, this is subject to potentially change once that initial email goes out to schools. We have the school coach assignment. I mentioned that Kendall was going to reach out to you all directly on November 4th with a follow-up email. At that time, we will go ahead and assign school coaches. So once you see the principal's email in this tracker, you got the email from Kendall and you see which coaches you're responsible for, that's the green light to go ahead and start to reach out to those principals. This column, column G, is just to indicate the time, the date that you reached out to the principal with a scheduling guidance. And then column H is a way for you to just track, has the principal either, let me be able to pull that up, confirmed, meaning they sent you the schedule, or are you still waiting on the schedule? And so that's just a way for you to see not only the schools that you're responsible for, but the schools that your partner is responsible for, so on and so forth. We'll go over the next part of the tracker in our next webinar. No need to bog you down with kind of all of those upcoming action items right now. But I do want to direct you to the bottom of the template. You see Coach's Planner. This is just a more detailed, do not feel like you need to look at this. Some people are like, I want more information. I want to know everything that's happening behind the scenes. I want to know what everybody is doing. If that is you, then you can use this tab. If you don't care about it, don't touch the tab and it's okay. And then there's a tab at the bottom titled Logistics. This is just a way for you to capture your flight information, whether you've confirmed your hotel. And I want to direct your attention to the volunteer application approval. Joe, I'm sure you've gone over this a little bit with your team, and this is the time if you guys have any questions, please open it up and ask. The application process is quite extensive in CPS. And there's a lot of communication. So this is a way for me and for all of us to track, like, you got that email with a final approval. You've gotten your fingerprints done. Your fingerprints have been approved. You got an email from CPS saying you're good to go and you are ready to go into schools. So right now, Kendall and myself are the only ones that have gotten like that absolute go ahead form. I plan on calling CPS early next week. Does anybody need me to follow up on an application that you've sent? Ashley, I got you.
Please. Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
And Joe, I think I forgot to talk to you about that, Jess, but I told Joe that he's in the same boat as LaShonda. He's applied, but I told him that we would reach out to Matthew in the research department. So remind me, I forgot about that, but I can get that set up today.
Awesome.
I've also submitted the initial application, but I'm not sure what the turnaround time is like. So I don't know if it's.
So my suggestion is call the volunteer office and I can send you that information, or just follow up via email. The more you are in communication with them, the faster the turnaround is. I think I bugged the poor woman for like 3 days so that we could get out within a week to get our fingerprints done. And she was really responsive, but I had to make that initial contact.
Okay.
And if you need me to follow up, just let me know.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And did I just hear you correctly? Are you suggesting that the volunteer application needs to be approved prior to getting fingerprinted?
Yes. So you submit your application. You'll get an email that says your application has been approved. You're ready to get your TB test and your fingerprinting done. And in that application, they'll have a link with the forms that you must bring to Chicago to get signed by the fingerprinting office. I don't know how, Kendall, dive in here. I'm pretty positive that all of the forms are the same. It just has like a signature at the bottom, but I didn't see any discrepancy in the form that I got or the form that Kendall got. So if you guys are in a rush and really needing to go get that fingerprinting done, I can just send you those forms for them to get signed, but then you'll be waiting for the final approval from CPS saying your fingerprints have been approved and you've got the good to go.
Joe, didn't we do that last year? Didn't LaShonda and Lucy not have theirs ready and you copied yours?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I think Jess, you attached it to the initial email with the instructions for background checks. So if you want to send that again to Andy and Becca, that'd be great. But yes, the form is exactly the same of the one that they would send you when they say your online application is approved to move forward. And yes, Lucy and LaShonda did that. I just I sent them the link and they printed out the copy. So I don't think you need to wait for that to schedule your trip and go get fingerprinted in Chicago.
Yeah.
Perfect. So when I send a follow-up email after our call, probably tomorrow morning, I'll include those so you guys can have those. Does that work? Okay, perfect. So let me stop share, go back one more time. Any questions?
Can I add one thing, Jess?
Do you want me to share
look at that? Oh wait, what? Can I add one thing? When you guys are looking at your tracker, if you want, like Joe was saying about thinking ahead, just blocking off time for memo writing, in your own time, you can look at those yellow items for after the support visit. These are the tentative dates scheduled for getting like a first one done so I can give feedback, things like that. And we'll go over this in much more detail next webinar. But these would be good to start marking time on your calendar now to hold it. or start thinking through what are some possible flexibilities that we can do so that we can still have a really strategic time process. So I have time to review everything, but we're being accommodating for your schedule. So that would be great if you could start thinking through that between now and the next webinar.
Any other thoughts or questions regarding the tracker or where to access it? PI folks, we streamlined it a little bit because from the last time, does this seem a little bit more manageable? Ashley? Okay, cool. All right, so last thing, and Kendall, I might have you jump in here because I know you know more about Chicago than I do. Logistics. So we have booked travel. We have booked our hotel. We haven't booked our flights yet, but PI has booked our hotels. We will be staying at Hotel Lincoln. And I know that, Kendall, you and Joe have already had a conversation about this. But do you want to share a little bit about the location?
Well, Joe knows this too. He stayed there.
Oh.
It's fun. It's a cool location. It's right across from the zoo. It's right by the lake. If you're a runner or like to be outside at all, go bring your stuff. You can go walking on the lake. It'll be cool. Fun restaurants. It's not really close to a train station. So LaShonda, you're in luck. You'll probably want to Uber from the airport. Things like that. But we'll definitely Uber to schools. So the airport's cool. You'll like it. It's fun. One question I had for you guys is, is anyone able to go to a dinner on the 2nd when you all get there? Because if so, I'll plan and make reservations for us somewhere. Yep. Is anyone not able to come? I know Jess won't be there, but would everyone else be there?
Kendall, I know our team hasn't booked our travel yet, so I'm sending you, Andy, and Becca instructions for that. But we're ready to book travel, so I think it might just depend on that. I can't see everyone's faces.
Sure.
Regarding the dinner, but we can let you know as soon as possible.
Yep.
And Becca and Andy, I worked with Laura to get confirmation to stay at the same hotel at Hotel Lincoln for us. So I will send you those details over in a few minutes too, along with the info about booking flights for those dates.
Great.
Awesome. It works well when we can all be at the same place. So then you can meet up, you can have a drink, you could have dinner, you could have apps, you could just hang out in the lobby, you can meet up with your interview partner and start getting ahead on that memo writing and debriefing.
Yeah, and I think it's nice to have somebody in close proximity to be able to bounce ideas off each other, because I've already been on a couple support visits and things start to blend in your mind. So it's a really good practice at the end of the day to just debrief, highlight what were some of the successes, what were some of the challenges in these schools, so that they don't all start to blend together.
Yeah, I had one last year where the people I interviewed were on one MCL team and it was horrible. And then my partner interviewed another MCL and everything was fantastic. And so our experiences were completely different. And had we not had a chance to debrief, my memo I wrote would have been completely wrong. So kind of just like an interesting thing to think about other people's perspectives as you're going.
Yeah.
And then does anybody have any ideas about lunch? Kendall, I don't know how far apart, I don't have any context around how far apart these schools are, but what are your thoughts on what would be kind of the go-to? Do we need to get a lunch ahead of time and just kind of eat on the ride over?
What did you do last year, Joe? Did you guys grab lunch or did you buy it on the way, and what did you do?
Last year, whoever our partner was, we just figured it out on the way, depending on where we were. Some of the schools are, there's all kinds of places to eat in between them. Some of the schools are kind of in the middle of nowhere and tougher, but we just did it on the fly.
Okay. We can think more about that and bring it up maybe as we get a little bit closer.
Yeah, and it could be if you Google map your schools and they're 45 minutes away and you need to plan for traffic that day, maybe you just plan on getting a sandwich from Subway or something early that morning or whatever.
Any other questions regarding travel or?
I don't think so.
So with the last 4 minutes of our time, let's just preview quickly what we're going to do on our next webinar so you have some peace of mind of what's to come. We'll discuss any of those upcoming action items leading up to the day of the school visit. We're going to review those interview protocols, adapt them to be CPS or Chicago specific. We will discuss any common challenges, tips, tricks, advice that we have from people that have already gone on support visits for what to expect, what to look out for, confirm travel plans with one another, and then review those post-visit action items. But we will also be meeting on the 6th, the Friday after the support visits, to kind of debrief high-level takeaways. And at that time, if we run out of time in our next webinar and we need to dive a little bit deeper into the memo writing process, we can go ahead and do that as well. All right, so wrap it up. How do we feel about our objectives for today's session? Does anybody need any additional clarity on any of these pieces? Great. Well, I'm so excited to have met you all. I see you all in person. Becca, what a small world. I'm excited to work with you. And I will send a follow-up email. Like I said, probably tomorrow morning. My schedule is a little crazy this week. But I'll send an email tomorrow morning with the recording from today's session, the upcoming action items, and the application guidelines for the background checks. Is there anything else that you guys want me to highlight? Nope. Any final thoughts?
This is totally unrelated. Well, it's related, but unrelated. I was just reviewing one of the quick memos and saw that in the intro text, we write, we also reviewed other school data for creating the memos. And I was just wondering what that other school data was outside of these site visits that you all conducted last year.
Great question. Kendall, take it away.
Do you remember why we put that, Joe? Was it because last year we did a school survey in December too? My wondering is maybe we had some recommendations that was based on that survey, but. Yeah, it could just be generic language. Like if we happen to know anything else from that school, then we'll use that. It won't be only the evidence from the support visit. Okay. I think it's probably just referring to that.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you all for your time. And we will reach out again. I'll reach out again after this, and then Kendall will reach out on the 4th.
Hopefully. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Joe.